I did not take a shortcut, go and live somewhere else and run away from the problems of my country, because I can afford to. I've taken a decision to help my children and my grandchildren and your grandchildren to make sure that they can one day live in a fair and equitable society.
Ek is Pieter Steyn. Kom ons gesels land en sand. Mr. Mashaba, thank you for welcoming us into your home today. You've lived an extraordinary life and a career so far. We'll talk politics a bit later, but can we just start at the beginning? You are one of 5 children, 3 daughters and 2 sons. Tell us about your earliest memories in Garamotse. In Hammanskraal, yes.
It's about 30 k's north of Pretoria. I was born on the 26th of August, 1959. Therefore, my life started in December of 1958, probably because my father used to work in Johannesburg, so I believe, and only come home from time to time. So basically, my life started when my father must have been on holiday in December 1958, because I was born in the 26th of August. As you are aware, a woman's pregnancy lasts for 9 months. So I'm a product of someone who, as you are aware, in the past we had migratory labor type system. So yes, I'm a product of such an arrangement. And 26th of August, dropped into this world, and unfortunately lost my father at the age of 2. By the time I opened my life, started seeing what was happening around me.
Your father, Silas, he passed away when you were 2 years old, if I'm correct.
That's what I was told, yes, and obviously it's in his death certificate. So basically, I opened up to this world when I was, 5, 6. Then I find myself with my sisters, my mother not there, my father not there, and I asked them, "Why, guys, what's happening?" Asked my sisters. Says, "No, you lost your father when you were 2 years old, and your mother is working in Johannesburg as a domestic worker." So I accepted. Then I said then who's taking care of me? So my sister says, "No, we're responsible for you." So basically, I was brought up in a child-headed household. They used to actually, later on in life, used to tell me, growing up, when they left for school in the morning, leave the house door slightly open because they didn't want to wake me up. And so that when I wake up, I just open the door, and they find me at 2, 3, 4 o'clock when they come back from school. So basically, I was brought up by the community in my youth. You can imagine at that age, I don't know, 3, 4 years, you just wake up, no one in the house. So you just go into the community, go and play. And my sisters start looking for me when they come back from school. That's the kind of life I was brought up under. But I was never a victim, because on the day I was born, on the 26th of August, 1959, it was well known in our village about the role my grandfather played in my life. That on the day I was born, he happened to have been home. He was working for the Garamkua municipality as a security guard. Also used to come home month end. So it so happened that on the day I was born, he was at home, and went around to every house, shouting to the entire community of telling them Hyman is born. So Hyman was not my name, but when I woke up in this world, everyone was calling me Hyman. Whereas on my birth certificate, when I was born, my parents gave me 2 names, Philip Samse, but my grandfather called me Hyman, and there's a name that everyone called me Hyman, including my sisters, my mother, and so forth. So, for me, actually, Philip Samse, it's not the kind of name that if I'm passing, you call Philip. It never is. It's just it is there on my papers, but it's not the name that I was ever called by. But But then when I was 13, 14, in fact, more especially, I think 14, when I went to Form 1, by that time, this Hyman was too much for me. And the reason why it was too much was because growing up with my grandfather, he was so protective of me. I meant everything to him. And he lived for me, you know. And I realized much later in life the role that my grandfather played in my life. That's why I give him credit. Unfortunately, I could not while he was still alive because I was still young. He died in 1977 when I was in Form 4. So my grandfather used to tell me that failure in life is not negotiable, and she really taught me about stability, told me about self-independence and so forth, self-reliance, you know. And I used to believe at the time growing up that his expectations of me were ridiculous, were unachievable. You know, that's why later on I changed the name to Herman. At the time, in the early 70s, Kaizer Motaung started a football club, Kaizer Chiefs, and he had a fantastic player called Herman Blaski from Southwest Africa, Namibia at the time. And I used to be a big fan of Kaizer Chiefs. I would to weekends when Chiefs and Pirates played, I would always make sure that I go to Orlando Stadium to go and watch the game, and changed my name to Herman, but not officially. I only changed it officially when after 1994 in my IDs, because it was not an official name. I officiated after 1994 when I could obviously go to Home Affairs to go and correct this, because no one would call me Philip or something.
But I want to quickly talk about your mother. She's a formidable woman, Mapula. She worked as a domestic worker for white families in the 1960s when apartheid was really at its height. I think Verwoerd was still there and John Foster and etc. Could you describe what the conditions was for domestic workers in the 1960s?
I think I remember when I started growing up and started engaging him. My mother, by the time I was in Form 4, Form 5, obviously her health wasn't good, so she stopped literally working, and I had to provide for her. At that time, my two sisters were married, left, and my other sister was training as a nurse at Baragwanath Hospital. So I literally took care of my mother from gambling weekends, because you know, people find it difficult to understand, more especially my kids, to tell them, you know, when now in 1974, I went to go into Form 1 then, I took care of myself, buying my school books, going to register myself and all that, because my mother's wage couldn't afford to even pay my 25 cents school fees. I remember in primary being punished on a regular basis for not being able to pay 25 cents school fees. School fees for our entire year was 25 cents, and 25 cents at those days was hard. And I knew my mother wasn't that she didn't want to pay. She couldn't afford it. So I vividly remember being punished on a regular basis. I remember going to school without shoes. I remember sometimes spending the festive season without my mother, because her employers wanted to go to Durban or something, and she had to be taken with her to look after their children, and she would really relate to us the kind of treatment they used to receive, not being allowed to swim in the beach, just be there to look after the white children. And the employers didn't give a damn about whether she had kids or not. She says they really talked to her about the conditions of her children or not. You can imagine festive season, there's a time when she's supposed to be home. Everyone, it's home. But from time to time, she would really be deprived of such privileges to really be with her family. But because she had to provide for us, she did. And I remember when I bought her own house, because my father died before building my mother a house. I bought a house in 1986 after 2 years into Black Like Me, because I started Black Like Me in January of 1985. By 1986, I bought my own house in Haranku, Unit 8. And a few months later, there was also a housing development in Temba, and I bought my mother a house there. And weekends, I'll visit her and enjoyed her company and relating to her about the tough upbringing that they endured in the past.
It's extraordinary. Your mother leave the house where she was working, sometimes very late at night, just to come and visit you for the evening, and then very, very early in the morning she has to go back with the train to Pretoria or Sandton or wherever.
Yes, that's right. Actually, my sisters growing up, they will relate this, because I can't remember, because I was still young at the time, that my mother on a regular basis, maybe twice or so a month, she will sneak out. She knocks off at 5 and then take a train, a bus to Johannesburg station, the other train to Pretoria, then take a train from Pretoria to going to Pietersburg, get off at Kekana, the station. At the time, the Kekana station is right where today you have Babelech industrial area. That time it was just a big jungle. There was no factories. It used to really be our grazing land. And go through that, to get off the train about just after 10 at night, go through carrying whatever she was carrying to bring us whatever she could afford. And then my sisters will then, because she will come in unannounced, because remember we did not have telephones at the time. My sisters will tell me, from time to time they will just get a knock at about 11 o'clock. And then it will be my mother carrying stuff. And then the first train going from Amaskal used to be about 4 o'clock or something like that. Then my sisters will then accompany her back to the station to take a train at 4 in the morning, so that by the time her employers in Joburg wake up, she's back at work. That's a kind of life that she led. And that's why I did everything possible when her health started taking a knock, that I did everything possible to ensure that her last days in this world are comfortable. Bought a house and really took care of her until her passing in 1996. At least she was fortunate. She enjoyed 2 years of our democratic dispensation. But what was interesting about her, I think about a year or so into democracy, she used to, I don't know whether joke or talking to her, says, but guys, it was during the negotiations for the Constitution, how ANC was giving in to some of the demands of this new Constitution. And you used to say, but I remember vividly Mandela, we used to attend his meetings in Joburg from time to time. And obviously we see him now 27 years later. I wonder if it's the same man. Didn't the apartheid government produce someone else? Because why did they tame him to really be so reconciliatory, even on things that are not negotiable? There are certain things that she believed it is good to really have a peaceful transition, but not to really give in to this extent. But she actually died being interestingly disappointed with Mandela. And I used to differ with her to say, look, if it was not because of Mandela, we wouldn't really be here. It was better to have a peaceful transition than than have what's happening in most of the African countries, where you end up not having any government, or having a situation where you don't have government. So yeah, that's was my mother. Obviously, the father, as I said. For me, calling someone dead in my life, it's something completely foreign, because I've never called anyone dead in my life.
When you was at school, you started your entrepreneurial spirit started there already. You sold dagga, and then you were also a knocksman, I think.
Yes, I was a knocksman. In fact, dagga was something Louis and I were friends. We were staying with my mother in Liboning at the time. Weekends, on a Friday like this, we'd go to school, make sure that by 2 o'clock when we finish, we rush to Babelech industrial area to go and gamble. And I was a knocksman. I don't know if you know what a knocksman. A knocksman is the owner of the dice, and is the government. This is the one who actually runs the affairs of that school. We call it a school, where you see a group of guys gambling. There's an owner of the dice, and he's the one who sets the rules as to who can gamble and the minimum betting and so forth. So I became a real serious gambler when I was doing Form 4 and Form 5 in schools where working guys would not allow school-going kids. But for me, older guys, working guys, actually preferred my school, because I maintain law and order. Because in a gambling den, there's always, every 5 minutes, there's a query, and literally every second guy is carrying a okapi. People are drinking and they're smoking dagga. It's a tough environment. But you know, for you to really be able to gamble properly, if you have a weak knocksman, there'll be chaos. So we've seen cases of people being stabbed, some people dying. So sometimes, I think in my life, two of people I knew, obviously, we used to gamble with, died in the process because of when you have a weak person managing the conflicts. Because we also used to smoke dagga. So, from time to time, sometimes some weekends you're not successful. And Louis and I, we said, but we spoke in this thing, why don't we, when we don't make it in a gambling, we can sell it to friends. And unlucky or lucky for us, my mother at the time picked up this strange behavior from us within a month, and we stopped because how she picked this up when someone sells dagga in the house, because we used to smoke as young boys. When you go and buy, you don't stay. You go into the guy's house, and then obviously 2 minutes later you exchange and you go out. So my mother saw this and he says, but guys, what the hell's happened in the last few weeks with you guys? I see very strange people coming here that I don't know. And one of you will live with them because they come in the evening. One of us will live with a guy outside and then come back. He says, what are you guys selling? And we felt, because we really loved school. Louis and I, we valued school. So we decided, no, it's not worth it. And the kind of money you were making out of that and the risks associated with it, because those days to be arrested for dagga, for just smoking, it was 5 years and no parole. And if it's 5 years those days, you serve 5 years. So I know so many guys who served for just smoking, not being the dealers, So once they get you with a piece of dagga, in the zone, you'll be sentenced to 5 years and you serve full 5 years. So the risks were high. So we said to Louis, now, you know what, this is not really worth it. A month later, we stopped and we continued just with the smoking part. But when I went to university in 1979, I realized, no, you know what, this nonsense I'm smoking doesn't do anything. And luckily I stopped, and I've not really been smoking since then.
You also sniffed benzene, but you also didn't become addicted to it.
Yeah, no, benzene, that's when we were 5, 6, 7, as small kids. We used to buy a small bottle of benzene, you put it on a cloth, you sniff it, But that it also didn't really happen for a long time, you know, because it really, smoking benzene puts you in another world. Complete. Whereas with the Dachau, for some reason, for me, I don't know if it had any effect. That's why when I went to university, I stopped. It didn't affect me, you know, because we were just doing it because of peer pressure. It was more a peer pressure thing than being addicted to the stuff. Because when I decided to stop out, I stopped.
I just want to talk about your three sisters, because they are actually formidable women as well. They raised you, actually. They had to make sure you've got food. They have to make sure you get to school, etc., while your mother was working and looking after white people's children. Yes,
I think more especially my elder sister, Esther, who unfortunately 7-8 years ago passed on at the age of, I think she was 72 or so. She had a stroke, but she was an exceptional woman. She really did so much for me. I remember when I went to Form 1, by that time she was married and then managed to buy a piece of land in Temba. They started, it was Buputatswana then, the area was already converted into Buputatswana. Mango provided stands to people, buy stands, and then you can then build your own house at your own time. Just provided you with water inside and street lights. If you want electricity, you had to get an electrician to come and do the work for you. And because it was really very difficult for me to travel from Ramotsi to Temba, because that's where the high school was. So you would leave in the morning by unreliable buses, and obviously it had to do for me more with affordability than reliability of the buses. So my sister, I mean, she was also living in a 2-room, 3-room tin house at the time in Temba when they bought the stand. But she had, at the time, she had 2 kids of her own. But with her and her husband, took a decision to take me in so that I'm nearer to school, that I can walk to school every day. And but obviously provided food for me, but the rest I had to take care of myself, buying books and the clothes and whatever. I learned to do that myself from the age of 13, 14.
You all had chores, like you had to go and fetch water and so on, but to relax, you were in a band and you used hides to build drums. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, you know, in our communities, when we grew up, we build up to the festive season, you'll have this marching bands. So this happened only towards the festival, like this time of the year, you know, at night you went to practice and so forth. And then during the festive season, once the schools are closed, you practice a lot. And then, you know, that week between Christmas and New Year, that's when you go and perform in different communities and so forth. It was really lovely growing up in that environment. And there's a time that obviously most of the family members would be home, because most of our families in our community used to be migrant workers. Some of them live in their houses empty. So during the festive season, from the second week of December, that's when people would start coming home, and they only go back to work first, second week in January. So that period was really quite special for us, because that's when we had an opportunity to see majority of our family members.
And music is a big thing in your life still. It was back then as well. I remember there's a story about the people didn't have radios, PM9 radios, but then someone moved into your community that had a gramophone. Yeah. And you were all scared of the noise that's going to come out of the gramophone.
Yeah, no, we didn't. No, we're not scared. We enjoyed it. A guy called James Baloy. We used to call him James. when they came from somewhere in the farms and moved into our neighborhood, and when he started working, the first thing that he bought was obviously a music system. And every weekend, Friday, Saturday night, we'll go to James's house to go and listen to him playing his music. It was fantastic, getting us to forget about our pain and our losses and our suffering, and that's what actually resonated with me quite early stages of my life, and obviously with more sophisticated music systems becoming available, more and more families had music, and I became friends with most of the guys we were playing dice with, and or drinking with, or smoking dacha with. They like jazz, and that's what even today. That's why jazz is part of my DNA.
Apparently, you're an excellent dancer.
No, I'm not. I used to in my youth. I don't know when last did I ever dance, but definitely dancing was something that it wasn't really competition. I think, for us as black people, one gift that God has given us, it's our taste for music and our natural instinct to dancing, That's why I find it really very strange, and not only in South Africa, because I've had an opportunity to travel the world over the last 40 years of being in business. To white people all over the world, they battle with dancing for the music that's playing. I don't know. Whereas you can be anywhere in the world. With black people play the music, they'll play to the music that's playing. Whereas white people, more especially men, I don't know. So, I think for me, dance, for us as black people, it's really something that probably it's part of our heritage, and something that one day I hope that we can turn this talent into a commercial venture that can benefit our people, because I've studied and I've attended jazz. I've listened to jazz music in my youth. I used to know all the big jazz players from the United States. You can imagine in the 70s. Actually, the way we used to be so glued up with music. Anyone can buy an LP by whether it's Duke Ellington or it's whoever. These guys used to, when they play, there'll be the different guys. One day they'll be playing with another group of guys. Every time I'll know if someone plays a piano, I'll know. At the time, I'll know. We will know who's actually playing the piano without obviously seeing the album. Or if someone playing the guitar, you'll know. You know what? This is so and so. We used to be so good in just really listening, to an extent of actually knowing. A big drummer, there was a guy called Idris Mohammed, I still remember. He was a big drummer, used to play with a lot of these guys. So you'd know the drummer here, it's Idris. So, if it's something else, you will know who's playing. But obviously, because of my business over the years, I've lost touch in knowing to the extent. But I don't know if we still have such quality of jazz any longer. And that's something that I miss. That's why when I travel, more especially to the States, last year I spent a week in New Orleans, my wife and I, going to jazz clubs, and then ended up in New York, so every time I travel the world, I always look, when I'm not busy, I'm on holiday, look for good jazz clubs. That's why when I was the mayor of the city of Johannesburg, I was insisting, because South Africa has got so much talent of musicians and artists, unbelievable talent that sit in this country. The problem what ANC did by not developing the city to accommodate everyone, open more clubs and restaurants, theaters and so forth, and allowed chaos and the destruction of our city. You know, I used to say to the residents of the city of Joburg that I want, when I'm in my mid-70s or so, I must buy a flat in town so that my wife and I can walk from our apartment, go and listen to jazz in the neighborhood and make Johannesburg free, like I could really be in Tokyo, or I can be in London or New York or New Orleans, or for that matter, or any other place in the world. That is still really my dream, and I hope that we'll be able to turn that city around one day to accommodate everyone, really make it a city that we can really be proud of and unleash the talent and the potential of our people.
You went to the University of the North, but you didn't finish. But before you went, you had to become a Catholic, I think. You were a Methodist, but then the Catholic Church gave you a bursary and you have to become a Catholic.
No, it was, I think my mother in 1976, I was doing Form 3 at the time, 1976. My mother, obviously because of her ill health, that's when she came back home, and she found herself a job with the Catholic Mission next to Jubilee Hospital. They have a seminar there, so we used to work there. And I probably she must have gotten an advice from one of the priests there that, your boy likes school, and so one day he has to really go to university, and the church does help. So it'll be advisable for him to be a Catholic. And so I got confirmed by the Catholic Church. I remember walking from Ramotse to Marokolong at the Catholic Church, because in our community, Ramotse, we did not have a Catholic Church. It was on, I think, about less than 10 kilometers. We used to walk, and actually that's the time when they were building the N1. So we walk through long before they finished, but they were still busy building the N1. So I was confirmed with the Catholic, and then after passing my matric, that's when it became valuable. My mother, when I was saying, now what do we do? They had contacted the mission. That time she wasn't working any longer, and that's how they were willing to assist me, but with 50% of my fees. And my brother-in-law, the one married to my elder sister, managed to get me a loan from FNB to pay the balance. So that's how I ended up at university in 1979.
You eventually had to stop studying. What happened that you had to stop studying at the university?
What happened in second year of my studies, because at the time I thought, firstly, I think, let me take you to when I went and applied to University of the North Tefloop. You can imagine University of Pretoria, 35 kilometers from our village, but obviously we were not allowed there. So the only place I could apply, the nearest university, was the University of the North, Tefloop. I didn't know where it was. I'd never been to that part of the world before, So I remember taking a train to go and register. Obviously, firstly, I applied before writing exams, and I applied to study law. And I was accepted, obviously, on condition that I passed. And then after getting my results in January, before the university opened, they'd already opened for registration. I remember taking the train at 10 o'clock at night, take a train from, at that time, Amanskral station, arrive in Pietersburg in the morning, and then you wait for a bus to Moria. Get off and then walk 2-3 kilometers to university, register, and accepted to study law. Then got all the details. Then afterwards, go back, wait for the next bus, back to the station, arrive home the next morning. And and then a few weeks later, the university reopened, and I went. First week of our orientation, it dawned on me and advice from the lecturers that it would be unwise for me to pursue a legal profession, because for you to pursue a legal profession at the time, you needed to have good marks in Afrikaans. And I performed badly in Afrikaans. I got an F, as much as I did well with other subjects qualifying to get a university entrance, but I had Afrikaans F. So I then registered for B.Admin with my two majors being political science and B.Administration. And yes, during my second year, studying hard to become a professor one day in political science, one morning, 6 o'clock, the university surrounded by the police, and we were asked to leave by 12 by the army. And I remember that day I did not even have a cent, but all of us, we had to leave the university by 12. So, you just really had to make a plan, get a lift to Pietersburg town, and from Pietersburg town, you hike until you get back home. By the time I get home, after many hours, really very angry, and I decided I'm not going, when they reopen, I'm not going to go back there. I focused my energies on looking for contacts to leave the country. And I was not the only one. Most of us, that's what we do. Most of our youth my age at the time, it was our dream, it was our wish to leave the country and go for military training because we had no future, I don't know, for some reflection, at the time I was disappointed when I did not get contacts. But I look at it in reflection now that I think God saved me from leaving the country, because in the process of waiting for the contacts, I got a job with SPAR. The SPAR warehouse. I waited for them for 7 months, and while I was with them, got another job with Motani Industries in Kurusksport. I waited for them for 23 months. So all in all, I wait for a salary, guaranteed salary for 30 months of my life. Then I turned 22. That's when then all of a sudden my grandfather's wisdom dawned on me to say, Herman, you're not going to live this life. But your grandfather said, you have to be different to everybody else. And I decided I can't leave the country. The only best thing I can do is to go into business. But then, what business? We're not allowed to go into business. I discovered an opportunity to be a sales rep, selling goods from the boot of your car. Remember those days to get good linen or good set of glasses and whatever. Factories, we did not really have big shops like today. Factories used to manufacture and then have commission sales rep. And you have a catalog, then you go from house to house and place to place selling. You get a small deposit, the person chooses what linen they want and glasses and whatever dinner services, and then you take a small deposit, take the order to the factory. Once the order is ready, they will deliver it directly to the client, and the client pays the difference, and then I get my commission. So I did discover this opportunity, but I needed to really I had to buy a car, and I decided, you know what? Before buying a car, stabilize your life. That's how I got married. Paid lobola in 1981, and 3rd of March 1982, I got married to my wife. So we've been married, obviously, traditionally, 44 years, but legally, next March, 3rd of March, it'll be 44 years of our marriage. And I actually value that decision I took, because brought up by my sisters, and my wife also played my sisters and my mother. And my wife also really played a role in my development, because after paying lobola, then 2 months I bought a car, and then 2 months I resigned and became a commission sales rep, which led to 1983 selling hair care products.
You and Connie went to buy the Toyota Corolla, your new car. And you didn't have a license, and she was quite stressed.
Oh, yeah. What happened is I had a learner's license, and there were driving schools, but I didn't really see the need why I must pay to get someone to teach me how to drive, man. I used to, every time we used to use taxis, I'll always sit in the front to look at what these guys were doing. And on that Saturday, actually, and Cody doesn't want to believe me, but we went to Lodium, Car by Motors, who happened to be friends with Motani owners. So I told them I want to buy a car because it was difficult to travel from Amaskral to Guruport every day. So I told my employer, Mr. Motani, Satar Motani, that no, man, I need to really buy the Toyota. Do you have any contacts? And he says, no, my friends in Lodium, they're the biggest Toyota dealers in the country. You know? So one Saturday with Connie, we get up. I said, no, let's go and have a look before I get a license, you know, because I like the Toyota has just launched this Toyota Corollas. And then I get there, we arrive in Lodium obviously from Amaskral to get a taxi to Lodium. And then we get to the garage. This guy is excited to see me, to talk to me. And here's the brand new one, 6,800 on the floor, a blue one. 6,800, and I had 3,000, just over 3,000 rands. This is no. If you pay the deposit of 3,000, your monthly repayment will be 180 a month. So I realized I can. So there's then, for some reason, decided they had a West Bank on the floor. Took my details. Half an hour later, West Bank approved my my application. And then, so they said, no, you can have your car. I said, no, that's fine. I'll take. I'd never driven a car before. and you can imagine it's a manual. Now, Connie said, no, man, let's arrange to get someone who can come and fetch it during the week or next weekend. So, you know. No, I said, no, I'm taking it. So, it was in the warehouse. So I asked them to bring it upstairs. There was the garage. So I said, bring it. So they filled it up. I took the car. Connie was angry with me. He says, what kind of risk are you putting us into? And when we passed Pretoria city center, he says, no, man, can't we stop at one of the taxi ranks and get someone who can drive us to Amaskral? I said, no, we're going. Yeah, eventually I got to Amaskral, but obviously, those days, the Jubilee Hospital was at the entrance of Amaskral, opposite this Catholic mission. My sister at the time was working for Jubilee Hospital. She had already qualified as a nurse. So I decided I must go and show the card to my sister. So managed to stop at Jubilee Hospital, went in. My sister was surprised. Brand new car. Now, obviously, she had to rush back. Now my face reverse. I stopped by a tree. But luckily, it wasn't just really a small dent on a bumper, you know. I don't know. I don't remember I ever even fixed it because it wasn't really that major. But by the time I got home with my mother and everyone was really very surprised. A brand new car. And then that Saturday, I got my one of my cousins, Benny, who used to work for a bus company. There was a driver, had a driver's license, took me for some few lessons. Then we continued on Sunday. Monday, I decided, can I take it to work? I said, no, I'm not yet ready. So went to still use public transport, come back in the evening with Benny brush me. From Tuesday, I went to Guruport, from Amaskral to Guruport. And then 2 months later, that's when I applied for the driver's license. That time I was already quite comfortable. And what saved me from the police was because it was a brand new car. So They were more interested in old cars because the majority of the cars in the townships were old. People used to drive second-hand old cars. This one was new. They never pulled me over or asked for my driver's license until I got my license 2 months later.
Herman, and then I think it was quite a turning point. You started to work at Supercool. That was a hair products company. Tell us about that, and that eventually led to everything.
Yeah, what happened in 1983, because during that period of serving as a commission sales rep, with the past laws still in effect, was really very, very dangerous, because every morning when I left home, I never thought chances of being arrested for a past offense were very high. At the time, during my upbringing, black men and women, really, you'd really find it difficult to find someone who's not been to jail. Now, because I was no longer employed by a white employer, and I was moving all over, Pretoria, everywhere, in the townships, Mamelodi, Atteridgeville, sailing. And I always carried this risk of if one day the police can find that I'm not supposed to be where I was and that I'm unemployed, I was going to be arrested. But I mastered the art of ducking and diving from the police, always drive a nice car, always be in a suit and a tie, That helped me to manipulate and navigate the police and the apartheid system with the past laws. Then in 1983, that's when I came across a company in Johannesburg. It was the World Paper or Sowetan, I can't remember the paper. They used to advertise for job opportunities. There was this particular company selling hair care products, looking for commission sales rep. I remember my wife at the time was working for Southern Sons and Senton at the head office. So I came to drop her, and Senton City was still small, and they had this telephone booth. So I phoned this company after dropping my wife. And when I called, the lady who answered the phone said, no, but we're looking for a white sales rep. But she was happy to listen to me. And then she gave me the address, says, come around. So I went, they were in this area next to Bedfordsview. So I went there. The business was owned by our husband and wife, Colleen and Leon Thompson, called The World of Hair. They just launched a brand called Supercool. Spoke to Colleen within half an hour. She was impressed with me. And that was the biggest break of my life, because the industry was growing. Because 19 months later, I was their top salesman by far, earning close to 4,000 rands a month by the time I left, and growing. And 19 months later, that's when I said, my goodness, Herman, I really felt vulnerable that one day this guy is going to just drop me, because those are some of the teachings from my grandfather, to really be careful not to let my life be controlled by other people, And I felt vulnerable, and I said, no, man, why must I live someone's dream? This it's an industry that is permanently there. Why don't you come out with a plan to manufacture this stuff yourself? And then, so I then proposed this to Joseph. Joseph, I had recruited him a few months earlier as a salesman. I used to meet Joseph when I was selling other products in Pretoria. We became friends, selling as a salesman. He was doing exactly what I was doing, but selling. Joseph was mainly in clothing. Was really more clothing. I never got in clothing. So when there was an opening in the company growing, I recommended him to Leon Thompson. So a few months later, I said to Joseph, I sold him the idea. I said, Joseph, we're not going to rely on this guy. Let's find a way to make these products ourselves. But we were traders. We had no technical know-how. Leon Thompson, the owner, used to travel with me a lot. he made one big mistake one day sharing with me. He used to like me, wanted to see because my customers were growing. So he used to go and visit my customers. But when we really became, I can't really say friends, but colleagues, you know, they were obviously much older than I was. And he shared with me. So I once asked him, by that time I'd already made up my mind that I've got to find a way to manufacture this product. I must have my own manufacturing of these products myself. So I said to him, discussing the risk to the business. He indicated to me about the risk of Johan. Johan had also joined the business probably about 6 months earlier, and he was related to the Thompsons through the wife. Don't know what kind, but they were related. He says, you know, our production manager is a good chemist, one of the best in the country, but he's an entrepreneur. I don't think he's going to last. One of the risks that I'm facing with this business is to really get a production manager I can trust, because I know Johan had gone out of business twice. So when Leon took him in, he just coming out of liquidation. So Leon knew that as soon as this guy recovers, he's going to leave him. And that's when didn't realize that he was opening an opportunity for me. But then, those days now...
And Johan was a chemist.
Yeah, as a chemist, yeah. So one day I took a chance. I said to Joseph first, I said, Joseph, let's take a chance, approach this Johan. I believe he's an entrepreneur. So let's take a chance. But Joseph says, but then what happens if he doesn't like our idea and reports us to this guy and we're earning good commission? I said, that's not what we've got to focus on. Let's focus on the positive. If Johan rejects our proposal and Leon is happy to get rid of us, so let it be. We're not made by him. So we took a chance to approach Johan, and only to find he was such an exceptional human being. He liked the idea, but he says, guys, I don't have money. We said, no, that's all we wanted to know. You're interested? And he says, I'm in. So then we had to go and look for the funding, Joseph and I.
Yeah, and you borrowed 50,000 rand from Walter Dube.
Mm. Yeah, so there was Mrs. Dube. Walter Dube was a very known, prominent businessman in Mabopane at the time. He was running a big Total filling station in Mabopane, and he had a small shopping center. And his wife had a salon, and the wife was one of my clients. So I then one day requested Joseph, and I made an appointment with the wife. He says, Ms. Dube, this is our plan. We're looking for the funding. We want to start our own business. Can you introduce us to your husband? And she was happy and actually excited with the idea, and took us in to go and introduce us to Mr. Dube. We sold the idea to him, and he says to go and work out the business plan. Johan and I, a week or so later, came out with a plan. We needed 30,000 rands, which Walter Dube with his partner, Mr. Moja from Harankua, gave us the 30,000 rands loans, but was one of the most expensive loans. He says, okay, guys, you're still young. I mean, Walter was double our age. We were still young at the time. I was, 24, something like that, 23, 24. He says, look, we can give you the loan, but we want repayment over 3 years at prime plus 10. And prime in 1985 was 21% in South Africa. It was during the crazy times of our country. Prime was at 21. So we're paying the prime plus 10, and then they wanted 25% shareholding in the business. We said, where do you sign? Because I sold to him to say, Mr. Dube, my pitch to him was that Joseph and I and Johan, we've got a printing machine to print money. And luckily, I was really meticulous during my time as a trader. Always keep my receipts and everything. So when part of our presentation, I showed Mr. Dube when I started from day one, 19 months later, from nothing to 4,000 rands a month. Johan, as a production manager, chemist, was earning 1,600. So you can imagine what black people were earning at the time. Here's a black guy earning 4,000 a month, purely on a commission basis. So, you know, so I said, Mr. Dube, we've got a machine to legally print money.
And then on Valentine's Day in 1985, you launched Black Like Me.
Well, obviously, we took over the factory first week in January of 1985. Then obviously, then started buying whatever raw materials, 200-liter drums and organized bottles and whatever. 14th of February. That's the first day we made, the first invoice we made. I didn't even know about Valentine's Day those days. It so happened years later that Valentine's Day, it's a big day, you know. So, yeah, I can tell you by March, we had already started, we are already repaying our capital plus interest.
Sure.
And then 7 months later, Walter one day, Walter was such a brilliant entrepreneur, brilliant human being. You know, I used to spend time with him after hours and so forth, you know, to get some advice and wisdom from him. You know, so one day, 7 months into Black Like Me, I said, I want to come and see you this evening. And I went, used to have the whiskey together. So I said to him, Mr. Dube, can you please tomorrow work out the balance of what we owe you? We want to repay. He was surprised, says, no, you can imagine getting prime plus 10, and these guys were successful. He said, no, man, why don't you guys use the money for expansion? We said, don't worry, Mr. Dube, we've got enough. Because we are selling on a commission. We used to buy chemicals on a cash basis. Johan sometimes used to travel from Garangua, coming to Joburg, for you know, visiting 3-4 different suppliers, because you don't get one supplier supplying all the different products to be able to make shampoo or Pem lotion or whatever. So, you know, Johan, because we're buying on cash basis and our cash flow, we're depending on our cash flow, you know, that's the reason I actually invited my wife to join us. To leave certain sons that have the salaries he was earning, because most of the time Joseph and I will be out sailing, and then Johan was also most of the time out of the factory going to buy raw materials from different suppliers, paying cash because no one would give us credit. You know, and then Joseph and I, we were sailing to salons on a cash basis. So every day, our cash flow just got better and better. That's how 7 months later, Mr. Dube wasn't happy with us repaying the loan. I remember taking out our loan agreement only to discover that there were no penalties for Heli. They forgot to. They didn't think I would finish early. There were no penalties. Even if there were penalties, I would have still paid it. So I paid him. And 5 years later, 1990. By 1990, I'd already moved into my own factory in Mabopane. I'd built my own factory, 6,000 square meters, using some of the latest technology in terms of manufacturing. German technology, employing over 200 people. Spent over 10 million rands on that factory, never owed anyone a cent. I built that factory out of my own resources.
It's crazy.
So in a matter of 5 years, 30,000 rands loan. And what is more interesting that people in this country are not aware about, that at the time I was already owning 3 good businesses, having shares in 2 other businesses. One, I started a guy called Norman. We started the Norman Service Center. This guy used to be a teacher in one of the technical colleges, teaching people on motor mechanic. So, you know, Norman, we were friends, and weekends I'll be with him having a drink. People come to his house to having problems with their cars. And I mean, 2 years into my business, really literally printing money, I said to Norman, why don't you let's start the Norman Service Center, you know. And I only took 30% in the business, and I funded the business. By the time I sold out of Norman Service Center in the mid 90s, I mean, the business was already in selling tires, windscreens. But then going back to the factory, also, when I was still in Lamanskral selling goods from the boot of my car, came across the first black civil engineer I came across. The wife was a medical doctor at Jubilee Hospital, and those guys were my clients when I was still selling other goods before hair care products. We became friends. And so a few years later, now making money from Black Like Me and making money from Norman Service Center. So I said to Brabi, the civil engineer, I said he was working, for Murray Roberts, or one of the big civil companies here in Joburg, and he used to travel every day. I said to Brabi, why don't we start our own construction company? And it's the same company that also took a 30% share. I funded that business. Built a lot of houses, including the factory. My factory was built by my own company. Market related, so because obviously I didn't just give him the business. I had to get other competitors to see his code, and so it was my own construction company that built. Also built me my first house that I built in Soshanguve, DD. Double-storied house with 3 garages, tennis court, swimming pool. You know. Yeah. It was my own business that actually built the house. So entrepreneurship has been part and parcel of my life. That's why today, with number of businesses that my family owns. We've got our head office here in Sandton. We have investments in lots of companies. So we no longer, as a family, go and open a business. We fund the businesses that requires funding. So basically, my family's core business is in the private equity, but obviously including Black Like Me, because in 2005 I sold 49% of the business to AMCA, closed down my factory, and outsourced everything to them. My wife and my daughter looks after our interest there because it is our foundation. That's the only place where my family still got offices at AMCA, where we look after our interests. But they do everything. They do our manufacturing, our distribution, and everything. My wife and my daughter just really look after our interest and really more marketing and so forth. But my main business is here in Sandton, which I had to leave in 2016 when I went into politics and asked my wife to take over.
But then you bought the shares of Kriel and Joseph, but later on you sold the business to Colgate, or 75% of the business. And then you bought it back again.
And then, I was lucky 2 years later. I sold it 1st of July 1997, and I bought it back, I think, 1st of August 99, I took it. I bought it back from Colgate, and then 2005 up to today, I sold 49% to AMCA.
Everything didn't always just went well. The factory also burned down at this stage, and it was bad.
Yeah, no, it was terrible. 17th of November 1993, on the eve of election, criminal elements torched my factory. It was it's a very painful moment of my life, but it was what it is. It is, and I've accepted that as a fact of life because luckily when it happened, I've always been very strong on saving myself. So ever since I started working, culture of saving, it's part of my DNA. The luxuries that I spoil myself with is excess money that I don't really need. But a big percentage of the profits I make are safe. So because 17th of November 1993, my wife and I got woken up, I think about 1, 2, that the factory is on fire. By the time we got there, we could see, I mean, this was not natural, the accidental fire. This was deliberate because, a big factory like that can't be burning all over all at the same time. And 2 weeks later, because of the collapse of the apartheid laws, 2 weeks later I bought a factory in Midrand. And started all over again. I bought it for cash. 4 million, paid I think 4.5 million rand for that factory. It was quite small, but it had a big piece of land at the back where I could expand. And the following year, that's when I started obviously getting professional people, including my own business, to code, and built another 6,000 square meters. So, by the time I sold my business to AMCA, I had over 10,000 square meters. And the factory was already becoming too small. But I think what motivated me to sell to AMCA was what I call draconian labor laws. They were just making it difficult for us to operate and focus on running business and providing employment to our people. And I really engaged the ANC a lot. Tito Mboweni, who had made a TEFLOP, we started together in 1979. That's where we met, but we were never friends until when he came back and got to really be close. Actually, on the day when my factory was burning, the first politician to come to my factory was Tito, and followed by Thabo Mbeki 2 hours later. You can imagine that's before the election, 17th. That was now on the 18th of November 1993. So by the time he became the Minister of Labour, I engaged them a lot on these labour laws that were passing, that they were going to destroy small businesses. They refused to listen, and that's how I really got really cross with the ANC on many fronts, not just the labour laws, the investment in the arms deal when people needed houses. 10 years into our democratic dispensation, Sentence Sun closed, and the city was becoming a mess. Pursuing really ridiculous economic policies, but it was the ANC for you. And, for me, what was really more painful was the role that we played as black business in the 80s, even during the preparations for the elections. I know myself spent in excess of 10 million rands on voter education to ensure that black people go out and vote. Got different agencies to run voter education in different communities because black people didn't know the power of their votes, and we were not apologetic. We were direct. Voter education was to vote for the ANC, and unfortunately, one got disappointed with them. I voted for them twice. First for Nelson Mandela. 1999 voted for Thabo Mbeki. Second term of Thabo Mbeki, that's when I'd really given up on the ANC.
Just a quick story that was interesting. After 2 February 1919, when de Klerk made his speech, you bought a house in Pretoria, but it's in a former white suburb, and your neighbor was Pik Botha. And there was a whole thing in the newspaper that they're going to drive you out, and then Pik invited you for
a reception at his house.
Yes. Yeah.
What happened is the house I'd built in Soshanguve, a nice 4-bedroomed house, as I said, with a tennis court, because I bought 2 sides, and one was the tennis court, I loved that house. But unfortunately, the roads, we had no roads, no telephones. So when obviously apartheid laws started crumbling, that's when it was already in the New South Africa, I think, when we decided with Connie that now let's move into areas where there's proper infrastructure. And because my factory being in Mabopane, yeah, so that basically means it was before the elections, because it was still my factory was still there, because my factory got burned down on the 70s. Probably must have been a year earlier, 1992, when Connie and I bought a house in Pretoria North, in a small holding. And I discussed, and then obviously we agreed with these guys went to take over occupation. A month before taking over occupation, my partner in the construction industry, Mr. Brabi, one Sunday comes to my house with a paper, and I'm on the headlines of this, with the South Africans newspaper, that these guys had a march to George Bentley. I believe they had all the right-wingers in that area, led by Koos van der Merwe. They had a march the Saturday before. They had a march to George Bentley because I believe they had come to an arrangement that no one is going to sell property to a black person. And I believe George Bentley's house was in the market for a long time. Then there was no buyer who could afford it. And I went there, gave him an offer to buy the house. So the march wasn't against me, it was against George Bentley. And obviously, all of a sudden, a week before moving into the house, one day one big business guy comes to my factory to introduce himself, sent by Big Botha. I'm Big Botha's neighbor. Where? Then related this whole thing that I'll be moving on this particular day, and Big wants before moving in host a reception at his house for me. So that's fine. So we accepted. Yeah, we go to, my wife and I go to this reception. The entire international media was there. You know, Beg was a real actor in his story, what he was doing, you know. And that probably saved me from unnecessary attacks from the right-wingers, because a lot of black guys who bought houses around Acacia and so forth, they were being harassed by the first few years of our buying those properties in the area. But fortunately enough for me, no one ever worried me.
You just named all the ANC politicians that you knew. There's a lot more, but you named Tito now and Thabo Mbeki. But after making all this money and building such successful businesses, you decided to go into politics, but not to the ANC, but to the DA. How did that happen?
Yeah, well, as you're aware, quite disappointed with the ANC, and DA was an alternative to topple the ANC, because I thought at the time that they were a liberal organization because of Helen Suzman's background and so forth. So I thought perhaps this is an alternative, because I saw the other political parties to be too radical, you know. Yeah, after not voting for the ANC, I started voting for the DA, including when they then had Mmusi Maimane as their leader. That's what attracted me to them. What happened is what attracted me to the DA to me was that at the time when I became despondent with the ANC, obviously going to politics was never in my vocabulary. I was close with Leon Law from the Free Market Foundation. One day after Malema had that march, you remember, from the Chamber of Mines in Joburg, and then came to the JSC here, and then had a march to the union buildings to go and give a memorandum to Thabo Mbeki. That's when I really got worried and said, "My goodness, what the hell is going on?" No, it was already Jacob Zuma at the time. So I said, if our politicians are going to go this way, at the time we were approaching the 2009 elections. One day I called, a few days after this march by the EFF, I called Leon Low. I said, Leon, can we have lunch? At the time, I was just really a financial support of the Free Market Foundation and Leon Low, because he's really one of those superb South Africans, even today, someone with the highest moral fiber you can ever get. So I said to him, Leon, can I play a role on a non-executive with the Free Market Foundation? At the time, I already worked out a plan. I needed a vehicle to challenge Section 32 of the Labour Relations Act. So I shared this with Leon. I said, I want to come on the board and I'll fund this constitutional challenge of this unfair labor practice, because it's against unemployed people and small businesses. This is a scheme by COSATU and big business to destroy small businesses. So I'm looking for a vehicle. Section 32 of the Labour Relations Act, what it forced a small, if once a year or on a regular basis, they will enter into a sector agreement. So basically, once they've entered this agreement, it forced small businesses who are in the same industry to also comply with the requirements of that agreement, which I felt it's unfair. How do you expect someone who started a cosmetic company overnight? I looked at myself mainly in 1985 when I started my business with my wife and two partners. We'll employ one person, second person, and so forth. We did not pay people based on their situation. We paid them on what we could afford. And I did not need any politician to tell me I must look after good people. So this, I realized, these guys were closing one factory after the other, forcing them to comply, including hairdressing salons being closed down because of non-compliance with big salons in the suburbs and so forth. And I said, no, this is totally unacceptable. There must be something constitutional that we can challenge. And when I discussed this with Leon, it's a lawyer, I felt we could, and we managed to get some lawyers, and I joined the Free Market Foundation. We reconstituted the board, and I was elected as the chairman of the Free Market Foundation. And I put in my own money to challenge this constitutional provision. And because I was literally in the news every day, first businessman to take over COSATU. Big business at the time asked them to join and provide funding. They were too scared of the ANC. And I said, my goodness, no. I had to do it on my own, funded this constitutional thing until it went to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court made a determination that if you're not a signatory to the agreement, you're not bound by this. But even up to today, they're still obviously finding ways to frustrate small businesses. So, I think that's ANC for you. And now with the GNU, they're all following on failed ANC policies, which is a big disappointment. So because I was mainly in the media fighting this government, the DA got attracted to me. 2019, when they were looking for a mayoral candidate in Joburg, approached me. Initially, when I was approached, I said, my goodness, whatever I got to do, what does a mayor do? I had no idea what the mayor does. But with one day, eventually, you wake up in the morning, you've got a new Minister of Finance, Jeff Van Rooyen, with Jacob Zuma, realized this is not a horror movie, this is real. And if privileged South Africans like you don't put your head in the ring and go and assist, this country is going to go down. And for me, leaving the country was not an option. I could afford to go and live anywhere in the world and visit my family 3-4 times a year. I said, no, I'm not taking that route. Let me dirty my hands. And everything else is history. Now I've got my own political party. I mean, things have been developing at a faster rate that I could ever cope with. And I'm now running my own political party, funding it. I don't get paid, but it's worth it. My wife is looking after the family's investments and taking care of me, and I help them from time to time with strategy, and obviously because I sleep with my wife, we discuss the issues and the challenges or whatever. Yeah, and we've really been blessed as a family from a business point of view that I've got the support of my family, and I've got the support of really put together a team of great South Africans who wants what is best for this country. Because for us as a political party, social justice is a core principle of what founded this political parties, what got me into politics. I'm not prepared to live side by side with poverty. As you can imagine, I live in this house across the street. 20 minutes walk into Alexander. You go and look at how people live. And then you have people like Helen Ziller to say market forces will correct this. I'm a full-blown capitalist, but there are certain things that you cannot say market forces must correct. People of Alexander or Soweto didn't choose to be in Alexander and Soweto. And we need laws that can correct the situation without disrupting the economy. And I did this when I was the mayor for 3 years, when I was taking over that city from criminal elements, hijacked buildings, derelict, abandoned buildings, really became unpopular with the criminal underworld. But I took them on. And worked with the private sector. And I made it a condition to the private sector that 30% of the houses units you're building, 30% must go to low-income communities, so that we can actually get people out of Soweto, people out of El Dorado Park, in Alexander, and so that both black and white South Africans in 20 years' time, which ANC has failed, that city can be a city for all. And I said, I don't want to follow the Cape Town model where you leave it to market forces. It's for that reason, an ordinary South African, black and white, can't afford Cape Town. It's one of the most expensive cities in the world. And our people are being pushed out to black and white. So this cannot happen in Johannesburg. And I'm sure you are following developments in Tshwane. Our mayor in Tshwane, we now, as I'm talking to you, we have properties we've put in the market to the private sector to develop. And our conditions are that whatever units you build, a certain percentage must be for low-income South Africans.
There's certain political analysts that have a narrative that Action SA, which you are the leader of, is more like disillusioned DA members, like you were with the DA, Michael Beaumont, Ethel Trollip, even Dr. Nasipi Moya. What do you do with that kind of comment?
Well, it's people who are obviously married to DA policies, whether they have the best of this country or not. You must understand that I think DA, as far as I'm concerned, is a bearing child of the National Party. I think if I look at the DA now, I've had personal experience. I'm talking from 3 years experience. And obviously someone like Ethel Trollip, who obviously was one of the founding members of the parties, not the party that they founded. It's a party that's actually, DA right now as I speak to you, I've had an opportunity to engage with the Freedom Front Plus ever since I got into politics. I can tell you in terms of their policies, DA is on the right of the Freedom Front Plus. far on the right of the Freedom Front Plus. You know, the Freedom Front Plus, more especially right now under Kone Mulder, you're dealing with a reasonable South African who actually understand that we need to really correct the ills of the past. But at the same time, obviously is there to ensure that the Afrikaner people are not left behind, which is a fair argument to have. But the DA is one, I can tell you. They are far on the right of the Freedom Front Plus in terms of their progressiveness.
Do you think the DA is more dangerous than the ANCs? That's why you would rather work with the ANC?
I think we were forced by the DA to work with the ANC after the 2024 elections. They are the ones who were the first, even before the elections were finalized, already started negotiations with the ANC and joined what they call the GNU with a letter of intent, the memorandum of intent, you know, without actually making sure that they have a proper coalition agreement where a week later, immediately after that, Helen Zille was the first one to say that the DA will protect Phala Phala, you know. I mean, you can see this political party has really lost the sense of direction. So if anyone says I'm a disillusioned member of the DA, I'm proud to have left the DA, because if I'd known that the DA is what it is, I would not have wasted my vote and time. Remember in 2019 when I left the DA, there was no motion of no confidence against me, but I happened to come across secret meetings between Helen Zille with the IRR, with senior members of the ANC, to come out with a motion of no confidence against me, you know. And remember, Helen wasn't part of the FedEx at the time. She was working for the IRR. So I came across this, and I made an announcement. I called Musi here at my house. I shared with him, giving me evidence of the secret meetings. Musi failed to act, and I decided not to live my life to Musi Maimane. When Helen threw the head in the ring after the resignation of Federal Chair James Self, when Helen threw the head in the ring, I then made it clear in public, wrote a press statement that in the event Helen Zille comes back with what she has done, I said, there's no way I will associate with such people. So I warned the DA about it. And unfortunately, or fortunately, 20th of October, Helen was overwhelmingly supported as the federal chair. The following day, I had a press conference to announce my disassociation with the DA, because there was no way Herman Mashaba would be associated with a right-winger like Helen Zille.
Do you really believe she's a right-winger?
No, big right-winger. She carries the right-wing ideologies. Someone who would work with some of the white councillors to cause problems, to accuse me of providing services to poor people, people who don't work, who don't pay taxes, who don't vote for the DA. You know, such a person for me, you know, I remember when, before even becoming aware of the secret meetings, I started having problems with some of my caucus members with my approach for provision of services to poor communities, that I was focusing too much on poor communities. And that's not true. Please have a look at the AG's report. You can see when I was the mayor, in terms of infrastructure upgrades, I did throughout everywhere. Building new substations, upgrading the old ones, because during ANC's period, no upgrade of substations. Build over 9,000 kilometers of roads. Here in Sandton and other areas, already upgrading water and sewer system, putting bigger ones, because if you look at most of the suburbs in the city of Johannesburg, the infrastructure built during apartheid for few communities. I mean, you take a complex like this where I live with 18 homes. It used to be one property for, you've got 18 homes, but the infrastructure outside before used to be the infrastructure built for one family. So those are things that are focused on. You looked at, the level of corruption uncovered and putting money back into service delivery. But for some reason, Helen didn't subscribe to those, including my demands for inner city rejuvenation, that 30% must go to poor communities. She wanted me to leave that to market forces. And all the properties through council that we awarded, we were oversubscribed. The private sector had absolutely no problem with this. She wanted me to follow the Cape Town model, to leave it purely to the market forces. And I said, no, I'm a capitalist, but there's not the kind of capitalist that I subscribe to. And I think for me, it's not because she believes in market forces. I think I would I would not apologize. Helen is a racist. She doesn't like black people, but she wants their votes.
Herman, the Action SA is now in the process of selecting candidates for mayors. Are you going to put your hat in the ring, or you do want to become Joburg mayor again?
I'm sure you saw a few days ago we announced starting the process for people to apply for mayoral candidate of the city of Johannesburg. Johannesburg is the most important municipality in this country. Without Johannesburg working, South Africa will never work. And unfortunately, with the disastrous mayor that the ANC has put forward, it's the current mayor, it's a total disaster. So our approach as the Action SA, there's a lot of pressure for me to stand. But I'm asking South Africans, and I think let's be realistic. A year ago, when I decided on Nasipi Moya in the city of Tshwane, who knew Nasipi Moya? No one. Today, Nasipi Moya is a household name, not only in Tshwane, throughout the country. Look at what she is doing. The blueprint that put together in Johannesburg, it's being followed in Tshwane. And then the beauty now is that all the coalition partners are in sync. Whereas during my time, the political party I was representing, the DA, was my biggest opposition to making this country a truly non-racial, equitable society. So basically my view is that in the event we don't get another Nasipi Moya, or we don't find another Olani Kumalo, because we've got a fantastic candidate in Igurule we've already announced. So if we don't, at my age, I'm 66, I think I'm old for politics. But however, in the event we don't, I'm happy to say to the party and our Senate that I'm available to make myself available. But let us first see if we can really get another Nasipi Moya. And I use that as an example because when I put her forward, when I proposed her to Senate, when I proposed her to South Africa, everyone got nervous. You remember I got criticized because people thought I was going to be the one taking over after the removal of Celia Brink. Celia Brink, who was very, very arrogant, relying on our support, but showed total disrespect. And you look at how Nasipi Moya runs that city. In fact, even today, Nasipi is overseas. I don't know if she's back or not. You look at now with the acting mayor, every Friday and every Monday they meet together, all the coalition partners with the executives, to really look at the program for the following week and the program for the previous week on how they performed. So they work in sync and respecting everyone, including the city manager and the executives. There's consultation. And when I was the mayor, from literally day one, people like Helen Zillard didn't want me to consult EFF. And without EFF, there was no way I could run. We only had 38% of the city at the time. And where are they right now? DA at 26%. Drop from 104 councillors. They're now sitting with 70 councillors. You know, they got really rejected by the voters, and they think they can send Helen Ziller here to contest in Johannesburg. For us as Section SA, we're ready for her. We see a huge opportunity because they might think black people are uneducated, but one thing I can tell you, the black voters are not stupid. We got punished as Section SA by one of the things why we performed so badly. One of the reasons was our association with the DA, with that moonshot pact or whatever you multi-party. Black voters said to us in Johannesburg, said, and all over the country, said, Action SA, your association with, you're going to give our votes to the DA. And they punished us. And look at our current by-elections in the townships right now. We are performing better than even 2021. So because of disassociating from the DA, it's very important not to associate with any party. We will only negotiate coalitions after the results are out. But one thing as Action SA, we're working towards, more especially in these 3 metros, we want to emerge with the biggest number of councillors so that we can take over the mayorship. Because when we run these 3 metros, we'll be running the economy of South Africa.
What do you think of Dada Morero?
Disaster. Well, I really hope and pray that the ANC put him as their mayoral candidate, because we'll have no competition. Like we have no competition with the DA, with Helen in the Black Township. Yes, they will get some white voters, but in the Black Townships, who constitute, 90% of the voting bloc.
But are you not in a coalition with Dada now?
No, we after we did the deal in Tshwane, the then ANC approached us to work with them in the city of Johannesburg. But we then said, guys, we will only take the legislative role, the speaker and Section 79s, but we're not coming into the executive. And that's how we came to an arrangement last October. And 2 months into the relationship, we discovered that ANC have put in the wrong person. And I'm on record, on public record, 2 months into this relationship, that we've approached the ANC, that they've got the wrong person. And us as Section SA, we are happy to take over positions in the executive. I'm sure you... I've had even with your radio stations everywhere. I made it clear. Unfortunately, the ANC liked the idea, kept on postponing until when it was crunch time for us to vote with them for the adjustment budget. They were not honoring their commitments. And we started voting against things that we're not comfortable with, until obviously they decided to remove our speaker in our Section 79. So we have absolutely no relationship whatsoever with the ANC in Johannesburg, and we're happy with that. We're working very well with them in Tshwane, because we are leading the administration.
Do you have any regrets in your life?
Not really. I think if I look at the 66 years of my development, I think my life, it's what it was. When I discovered that I don't have a father, what could I couldn't reverse that. When I realized I was in this world, I had HFR Root, who was a very dangerous man. I couldn't really do much about it at the time. Do I regret having gone into business? I'm very proud of that. I'm financially independent South African. I'm using my privileged position. It is for that reason that no one can ever corrupt me. No one can corrupt me. I'm financially sound for the next few generations. As long as my kids and my grandchildren can look after what I've built, I don't owe anyone anything. And I've made provision for future generations that my kids must live life in a manner in line with the income that they get. Try and teach them to live a good life that I provided them, but make sure that I will rule beyond the grave in terms of how they must look after our family assets. If it means we have to have outside people to manage them, it'll happen that way. So I'm really grateful of this privilege that I enjoy. And one thing I hate being a politician, but at the same time, it's one of the most fulfilling jobs, because every time I see what Nasiphi Moya does every day I reflect on my 3 years as a mayor of the city of Johannesburg. I really feel I'm one of the most fortunate human beings on this earth, being born in abject poverty, being able to liberate myself under difficult, brutal, evil system. And here many years later, instead of going in retirement, I'm paying back to my country. I did not take a shortcut, go and live somewhere else and run away from the problems of my country, because I can afford to. I've taken a decision to help my children and my grandchildren and your grandchildren to make sure that they can one day live in a fair and equitable society.
What are your thoughts on money, or your philosophy on money?
If you want to make Herman Mashaba happy, put him in an environment where he makes money. Where I enjoy my work, because I don't enjoy politics. But it's a job I need to do because it's a job that has to be done. But I don't like it at all. It is for that reason I'm refusing to make myself available before it becomes necessary. But making money for me, it's something I enjoy. I love to make money, but money for me has never really been the end game. What for me money means is that it must allow me to live an independent life, and to make sure that I spoil myself from time to time, but spoil myself with excess money that I don't really need. I very strongly believe in saving. It is for that reason I've managed to save for 2-3 generations to come. So with a few years left with what with the balance sheet I've built, I can never be without property. I can never really be destitute. I think money is important to give you that kind of independence, and I think I regard myself to really be fortunate, and I don't take the role of God in everything I've achieved, because I did not really achieve this because I'm a clever person. I think my path has always been shaped by circumstances outside my own control. I was at university wanting to be a professor, and God said, no, education is not your route. Business is your route. Took a chance, and fortunate enough, things worked for you. Went into politics, got disappointed with before going into politics, supported the ANC, not just spiritually, supported them financially, and went into the DA only to find that what I saw, it's not what was there. But you know what, with the DA, there's lots of good people within DA. majority of DA people are still regard them hold them in high regard. Majority of them, unlike the ANC. But unfortunately, I don't know, for some reason, the party has allowed itself to be dominated by right-wingers, which is really very unfortunate.
Herman, will you play us something on the piano? Herman Mashaba, thank you so much for all the time that you spent here talking to me and to the listeners. We really appreciate it. Thank you very, very much.
Wonderful, thank you. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Elke Dinsdag gesels ek met nuusmakers, planmakers, bekendes en berigtes. Laat weet ons wat jy dink in die kommentaarveld onderaan hierdie pot gooi of stuur 'n e-pos aan info@rsg.co.za. Onthou om die follow knop hierbo te druk en kom gesels elke Dinsdag, land en sand.